I'm Robin Horsfall, former SAS Soldier. I'm an author, a poet, paratrooper, a medic. I'm an inspirational speaker, and I'm here tonight with Savia, Us People podcast.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host Savia, and today I'm humbled to have Robin here with me, who is an inspirational and motivational speaker, also an ex-SAS soldier. So Robin, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. So this is going to be interesting because of your background and your experience. I definitely would love to know your story, especially when it comes to where you were brought up and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today, Robin.
Okay. I was born in the south of England in a little village called Webburn, just outside Farnham in Surrey, not far from Aldershot. And I was my mother's first child. She was 17. And my father was in prison, so we lived with my grandmother and my grandfather in a little sort of council house. And I never knew my father. I met him when I was about 27, and my mother got pregnant again while my father was in prison, so he divorced her from prison for a low moral standing. and a man called Jeffrey Horsfall married my mother when I was nearly 8 and adopted me. So that's where I got my name from, Robin Horsfall. And Jeffrey Horsfall was my stepfather. He was from Leeds. We had a very, very difficult relationship. So his way of dealing with my resentment of him becoming my father or appearing in my life when I hadn't had a father before was to batter me. And I'm not talking about getting a smack. I'm talking about getting hit 30 or 40 times and dragged out from under the bed. So I ended up hating him and letting him know I hated him. When I was 11, I went to grammar school, and he was rather resentful of the fact that, the cricket gear and the clothes and the uniform. And one day I was about 11, and he decided that he was going to give me a good hiding again. And instead of running away, I just turned and glared at him, and he knocked me to the floor, and I got up and glared at him again and didn't cry. And he never hit me after that. He left me alone. It's not such a simple story. These things are complicated, more complicated than people would like to say.
Yeah.
But we became close friends before he died. So it's not just a bad, sad story. When I was 14, I was doing very badly at school. So I decided to go to an army recruitment office on Hospital Hill in Aldershot, and decided I wanted to join the army. The school leaving age in 1972 was 15. So in 1971, I went into the army recruitment office and said, "Can I join the army?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah, okay, but you can't join until next year when you leave school." So I played truant from school from the next 6 months, and then turned up at a selection centre at Sutton Coldfield near Birmingham. And I'd been a St. John's ambulance boy, and I wanted to join the army as a member of the Royal Army Medical Corps. I wanted to be a medic. And the people that selected me after my test said, "No, we don't want you to be a medic. How about being a member of the parachute regiment?" So I joined the parachute regiment. It's a bit of a change, from fixing people to killing people. But that's where I ended up as an infantry junior leader in Oswestry from the age of 15 to 17 and a half. And that gave me a new home. It gave me a place to get some strong foundations in my life. They carried on with my education, so I passed my CSEs. I learned some self-discipline. I learned how to look after myself. I learned how to be part of a team. I learned to teach, and many other things. And I was put in with a bunch of very, very tough boys who gradually made me tough. I had to learn to be tough. I wasn't to begin with. So for a while, I was very much at the bottom of the pecking order. And by the time I got the confidence to fight and fight back, which one tended to need to do with boys in a male environment, I overdid it.
Okay.
I went from being the whipped puppy to being the vicious dog at the top, which made me no friends. At 17, I went off to Horsfall and joined the parachute regiment as an adult. Jumped out of aeroplanes. Things got really, really tough, and I did my first tour of Northern Ireland when I was 18 years old in West Belfast, and I did another tour the next year, and another tour the next year, and I got shot there. I ended up laying on a bomb there, and discovered I was laying on a bomb. So I didn't go and lay myself on a bomb deliberately. I laid on the ground to cover some friends who were going into a bar across the road in the dark, and realized there was something that wasn't grass underneath my body. So I scraped away some dirt, and there was a galvanized bucket with a taped on lid facing a post office wall. And I immediately ran around the corner and said, "Oh, the bomb!" And we called in the ammunition technical officer. And it was January 1977, and it was freezing cold. And they'd actually tried to initiate it with a battery, but because of the cold and the ice, the battery hadn't been strong enough to set it off. So very lucky, very lucky. Yeah, same tour I got shot. I went home early and got a few weeks in hospital. And so the guys in the battalion started calling me half tour Horsfall because I was only there half the time.
Oh.
After when I was 21, my mother died of cancer, and she was 37. I'd just come up to my 20th birthday, and I joined a wonderful part of the parachute regiment called the Vigilant Platoon, which were really the wild bunch, the best singers, the best fighters, the best everything in the every troublemaker in the battalions was put into the Vigilant Platoon. And it was an anti-tank guided missile platoon, and I would have stayed there forever, I think, but the army disbanded our platoon because a new missile came in, and they wouldn't let me go back to my parent unit, which was the 2nd Battalion of Parachute Regiment. They were going to make me stay with the 1st Battalion. Now, there's nothing wrong with the 1st Battalion, but I didn't want to go back there. I wanted to go back where I'd come from. I wore my blue flash, and I wanted to get my blue flash back and go back to 2 Paramortar Platoon. And they wouldn't let me. So I said, well, I know there's something you can't stop me doing. And I went up the office, and the battalion clerk said, I want the forms to go to the Special Air Service. And there was some Yorkshireman at the back. There's always a Yorkshireman at the back of the office. And he said, you're far too young, Horsfall. You think you're something special, do you? You'll be back with your tail between your legs, I'm telling you. And yeah, he was wrong and I was right.
See.
Yeah. So I went off at the age of 21 to try and get into the SAS. Now, SAS selection's a year long. A lot of people don't realise that. You do the mountains, you do the jungle, you do the continuation training, you do the combat survival, you do, if you're not already a paratrooper, you do the parachuting, and then you're on trial for 6 months and you learn a personal skill. Mine was medicine, and my troop skill was climbing mountains. And at the end of that whole year, you then get qualified although you've got your badge and you're in the squadron, you don't get qualified till the end of that year as a qualified SAS soldier. But it took me 2 goes. The first go in September 78, I failed. I didn't make it. The second time they kept me on, and the second time I passed. Only 8 of us passed in the second one. It was the winter of January 1979, and one man called Mike Keeley, an SAS major, who was very famous for his courage, died on my selection. He'd come up to join us in the terrible cold and ice, and died of exposure on the mountains.
Wow.
It was a pretty tough course, very tough course.
It sounds tough. One thing I definitely wanted to ask you, I've always wanted to ask someone is, how was it when you got shot for your first time? What was you thinking? What was you feeling?
Well, my first time was actually my last time as well.
Okay. Thank God.
Yeah, I learned the lesson. I didn't let it happen again out of pure luck. Um, but I was running down the road in Ballymurphy, and my patrol came under fire, and I went over, and I thought I twisted my ankle, and so the guys grabbed me by the lift webs and dragged me through the entrance of the gate, pouring down with rain, and it was dark, and they laid me on the floor, and they said, "Where have you been hit? Where have you been hit?" I'm going to cough, and I said, "I've twisted my effing ankle," and they all looked really disappointed. They said, "Oh, is that all?" And just walked away and left me lying on my back in the rain. Took my weapon off me and unloaded it, and left me lying there in the rain until the ambulance came. So this armored ambulance, a Saracen, came, and they put me in the back and switched the lights on, and so let's have a look. And it had gone through my puttees. I used to wear puttees around your ankles in them days, which are like big brown bandages. And it had gone through the putty, and it was a 2-2 round. So it had entered and stopped on the bone. So the wound was quite small, but it had knocked me over, and I had twisted my ankle. And the pain from the twisted ankle was far, far worse than the actual bullet wound.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, now here's a good part, because I went off to hospital with this hole in my leg
Yeah.
and a badly twisted ankle. So they left a gap in the plaster to do the wound, put plaster on my leg, and sent me home again. So half to Horsfall got another trip home.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, yes. So yeah, so it's so yeah. There's every cloud has a silver lining.
It
But
sure
yeah,
does.
I didn't know I'd been shot at the time. I didn't know.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
It doesn't
so
always
amazing.
happen that way. It's just a matter of luck. I mean,
Yeah,
if it's a high velocity weapon or it hits you in a different part of the body, you can be just as quickly dead,
that's
or
true.
just as quickly with your arm shot off. With one bullet. Poof, gone.
Oh
So
wow. What is it
yeah.
like working in a team knowing that you have so many people necessarily under you that you have to be in charge of, for instance? What's it like
Um,
working in a team knowing that you have all these people that I'm not saying that you need to look after them, but you are kind of responsible for them in a way.
well, in those days, I was one of the junior ranks.
Okay.
So and I had some marvelous leaders.
Mm.
On 2 occasions I can think of where we got shot at. The patrol commander, one of them was a great guy called My Isaacs, a Welsh guy. And as we got shot at, he just ran straight where the bullets come. We just ran with him. There was the enemy are firing at us, go straight at the enemy. And with that kind of leadership and with those kind of comrades around you, highly motivated, highly trained guys, I loved it. I loved being a soldier. I adored being one of the biggest and the baddest with the guns and on the streets, and it was exciting. It was, yeah. I just a lot of it was down to the people I was with, and
Yes.
the outstanding training that I'd been given,
Yeah.
and the fact that they'd prepared me mentally for that kind of thing. They'd made me tough before it happened. Jumping out of airplanes isn't just about getting to the ground. Jumping out of airplanes means that you face death by choice. You
Yes.
know, as a young boy, a young man, young adult, before you've ever been in combat. And I've never known personally a member of the parachute regiment to freeze the first time he comes into combat. And I think partly because of the training and partly because of the leadership.
That's a really good thing to actually know, especially for people who want to get into who are just starting in it. But what? There's a question for you, Robin, which is, you've done so much, but what made you decide to then become an inspirational speaker or
Well,
motivational speaker?
well, that's jumping from the beginning right up to the end, really. Um, a few years back, I started putting up posts on Facebook, um, wise old paratrooper posts, and I gave
Yes.
myself the tag wise old paratrooper, and people started to enjoy them and come back on them, and so on like that, So um, that was part of it, and so I started producing some wise old paratrooper books. You
Oh,
know,
cool. Oh, that
that's
looks
the first.
cool.
That's the second one. No, yeah, that's the first one. That's the second one.
Ah.
Me after I came out of uni, and that's the third one. It's supposed to be me in a few years' time.
Oh, don't say that.
So you got the words of, more words of, and last words of the wise old paratrooper. So I started doing that, but a charity got in touch with me and said, "Can you come and do a motivational speech for us?" And it was for Julia's House, a children's hospice down in Devon,
Yes.
Dorset, down in Dorset near Poole. And it's a children's hospice with respite care for parents, and they do an absolutely marvellous job. And I always say that they're my special forces because they deal with some of our worst nightmares, our children dying. Um, so I did this motivational speech, and they said, oh, well, that was fantastic. Would you like to do another one? So the company that introduced me to them introduced me to somebody else, and then I got to be doing 3 or 4 a year, and I started to realise it was work. So then I started charging for them. But last year, COVID, just killed everything because
Yeah, it
you
did.
can't move, you can't congregate. So last year was a difficult year. We didn't do any, and we're hoping to do some more when the crisis is over this year coming. But what I do is this: I talk about my life and my life experience and what I've learned from it. I learned from being a bullied kid. I learned from dealing with adversity, um, leaving the military, how to become a civilian, being a parent. Oh, there's all sorts of things there, and you can take that format and you can adjust it for any particular audience. So I've talked to primary school children in a different way than I would talk to an airborne reunion, or I would talk to a bunch of executives, or a bunch of one occasion purely female audience. And so you adjust slightly. I mean, if you've got a bunch of paratroopers out in front of you, you're not going to tell them about how scary it is to jump out of an aeroplane.
Yeah.
But if you've got a bunch of women out there, you're definitely going to tell them about the birth of your first son while you were at war in the Falklands.
See.
So and you're going to get all the so yeah. Sometimes you get that from the guys too.
No, I think everyone has some form of compassion, regardless, man or woman, or it's just, yeah, it's there.
Some people don't, but they're rare. They're
Mm.
rare. Some people hide it. Some people are ashamed of it. They see
Why?
they've been intimidated and bullied so much that they're frightened of showing any weakness.
Okay.
Um,
Yes, I understand that.
so they get flippant and cynical, and they pretend that they don't care. Deep down inside, a lot of people do, but there are occasional people, as I said, who are narcissistical and psychopathic,
Hmm.
who genuinely don't uh, care about consequences or people or feelings. They don't empathize. And I've come across a few of those in my life as well. And you have to learn how to deal with them
How did you deal with them?
by convincing them I was as crazy as they were.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Hmm. Yeah. That way, and maybe to a certain extent I was, but I did empathize and I was frightened, but I was prepared to fight them if necessary. And I never tried to I never lied. You never lie to a nutter. You always tell them the truth. A nutter being the common term for psychopath, but you never lie to them. You always tell them the truth. Am I frightening you? Yes. Yes, but I'll still fight you. But you do frighten me. That kind of thing. Just being straight with them makes it a workable relationship.
Would you say that you being bullied turned you into a bully, or do you believe that you being bullied turned you into somebody stronger?
Being bullied is, in the first instance, took away my stepfather, took away my ability to negotiate.
Yes.
So when you hear that noise,
Mm-hmm.
that was the ice running down the windows.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's the ice running down the windows on the roof here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, it takes away your ability to negotiate.
Yeah.
So when a young person's up in front of an authority figure
Yeah.
and they go, I don't know, you got nothing to say for yourself? No. It's usually because they don't trust the people they're talking to. They don't trust authority figures. The authority figures that they've had in the past have brutalized them. And if they answer back, they get whacked for answering back. So they stop answering back. And then when you come across another authority figure, a policeman, a churchman, a mentor, you have to understand that these lads have had it knocked out of them. They don't trust you. They don't believe that you're going to listen to a word they say. And, so that makes you remote. And because you're remote and distant, then people think you're a bit weird or unfriendly. So then you don't make friends very well. So it didn't turn me into a bully. It turned me into an extremely violent person. So if someone was looking for it, then I was going to give it them first. If anybody was looking for a fight, anybody started on it, they were going to get it. There was no half measures. But I never went looking for somebody. I never went picking on people. But if somebody was picking on me, by hell,
Yeah.
then I was going to go. I was going to go over the top with it. And that was the case until I turned up in Hereford. And while I was going between the selection I failed and the next one, which I passed, I met my future wife, Heather. And she was like, I was like the dog that had been poked with a stick too many times. And she got in a cage and tickled my ears, And I tell her even today, and I say it in some of my talks, that, she saved me. She gave me back my humanity because it was always there, but it was hidden under all this other brutality. And it wasn't necessarily the brutality of being a soldier. It was the brutality of being abused and bullied physically as a boy. That continued because of my cynicism when I was a boy soldier. So I found it very hard to make friends, and that stayed with me for a long, long time. But Heather um, managed to get me to show my emotions. 3 years later, I married her. It's our 40th anniversary this year of marriage.
Wow.
Been together 43 years. We've got 5 kids, 10 grandchildren, and 3 great grandchildren.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, like my mother, we started young. But she had 2 baby girls when I met her, and she was divorced. So they're included in the 5.
Yeah.
But my personal first child, Alex, was born 4 days after the surrender in the Falklands.
Oh yes.
So I was in the Falklands War, and my Alex was born on the 18th, and the enemy surrendered on the 14th. So I got the news while I was down in Port Stanley.
How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel, Robin, when you actually got the news?
I was pleased that mum and baby were healthy, but I was too far away to really enjoy it or understand it. And I got home when he was 10 days old, and I've got a photograph of me holding him in those first couple of days, and him looking up at me. It's on my Facebook page, and do remember the first time I picked him up, and he's it was an overwhelming joy, overwhelming. And I wrote a little poem, a little one stanza poem about it not long afterwards. And I think he said something like, "Here we are, both with our roles. Mine father, your son, a joining of souls." Um, so I'm going to have a drink. You might have one as well.
No, no, I've got mine here with me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So it was, for me, it was a wonderful joy. I was present for the next two, for Charlotte and for Oliver,
Yeah.
when they were born. And being a paramedic, I was Britain's ninth paramedic, and I got 009 on the certificate,
Oh yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wanted 007. So it was a shame.
It
I
could be
wanted to be
double
the
O
seventh.
seven. It's all right.
007. Yeah,
Aw.
yeah. You got to remember, Sean Connery's the actor. I'm the real thing.
See, that's very true, actually. That is very true, Robin. I agree with you there. See? Was there ever a time when you broke any rules? And did you ever get caught breaking any rules?
Um, I broke a lot of rules when I was a young paratrooper in Aldershot in terms of violence, in terms of fighting. But Aldershot was an extremely violent place, but it was contained within the military, so it didn't involve the civilian population of Aldershot. It tended to be soldiers fighting amongst themselves, and so yeah, those cases. But there's a great film, a great James Cagney film called Angels with Dirty Faces, which is a 1940s film, I think. And James Cagney and his friend, as boys, are running away from the police. They've been nicking stuff, and they run away from the police. And his friend gets over the fence and escapes, and he gets caught and ends up in the prison institutions. And he ends up getting executed for murder at the end after being a gangster. And the person who reads him gives him the last rites is his friend who escaped over the fence.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I say that because life is often about who gets caught and who doesn't.
Hmm.
And I never got caught. So consequently, I ended up being an upstanding and upright citizen later on in my life. But
Yes.
had I been caught and convicted of some of the violent things I was involved with as a young man, it could have been a completely different story. So it's a question of luck sometimes. Angels with Dirty Faces, yeah, it's a great film.
I've
It's a
written it
great,
down now, actually, Robin.
yeah,
So I'm going to definitely watch it because I'm always looking for something good to watch and that has a story.
yeah. I love the old films now because they're so well told. The story is there. It's beautifully directed and told. Whereas you don't need special effects. If people are
Yes,
bonking in the bedroom, there's a twitch of a curtain. That'll do it. Our imagination does the rest. We don't need a 5 minute sex session on
that's true.
in the film.
That
The
is true.
story has been told. People understood that better, and you don't need magical special effects to tell a great story. So I do tend to go back to some of the older, better told films these days rather than the big blockbusters. Although I am a Star Trek fan.
Oh, you too. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
That's my disappear into fantasy there.
No, that's all right. That's absolutely fine. If I could get you one of those, I would. Let's talk about empowerment
Yeah.
because I believe that's something really important. What does empowerment mean to you as an individual, and how do you believe that you empower other people?
Yeah, so that's a question that I have considered before. Empowerment comes from developing self-confidence.
Mhm.
Self-confidence at first. A lot of the reasons that people don't lack confidence is because they think that the people they idolize aren't like them.
Very
They
true.
think that, for example, soldiers, special forces soldiers, aren't frightened, or they don't make mistakes, or some of them aren't, alcoholics or gambling addicts, or don't mess things up, or some of them are even cowards. But they create this image, and then they want to be like that image, and they're disappointed in themselves because they can't be. And when I wrote, I've got it here. When I wrote my autobiography, Fighting Scared,
Oh wow.
yeah, and I wrote that in 2002, and that's my whole life story up to the age of about 45. It was from my birth up to the death of my father, actually, my stepfather. Um, I cover that in some depth, and I had quite a lot of people come to me and say, when I read that, or when I heard your lecture, I realized for the first time in my life that there was nothing wrong with me, that it was okay to be scared, that it was okay to screw up, that it was okay, that all these amazing people you see in the movies, their fantasies, and all these people that you put up on pedestals are just like you. The Queen is just like you. She feels the same things you do. She gets really upset when the kids screw up. She gets mad when they get divorced. She doesn't know what to do about the grandchildren making all that noise. She kicks the corgis when no one's looking. She's a human being, just like you.
She kicks the dogs.
I don't really know if she kicks the corgis. I know
I
that
don't
nobody
know.
else dares to.
No, no, yeah, you can imagine. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're just people. We're all just people, but we're
But
individuals.
exactly, all unique, and that's what I love. We're
Mm.
all unique. How
Yeah.
do you, what do you think the meaning of life is? This is a question that I find it difficult to answer.
Say the question again.
What do you feel the meaning of life is in
Ah,
your view?
yeah, yeah. I think if there was a meaning of life, I don't know, purpose in life. To
Mhm.
have some purpose in life means I think you have to do something that's meaningful.
Yes,
You know, and that doesn't mean winning. And winning's tactical, success is strategic. You know,
I like that.
um, you and you have to strive for something noble. So something meaningful and something noble, something you can be genuinely proud of, no matter what happens in the rest of your life. You can turn around and say, I did that good thing, or I tried to do that good thing. And it was important. It was important because it made somebody else's life better. I think a lot of the time people want quick fixes. And I don't know if that's a modern thing or it's always been the case. And they also demand happiness. And there's I don't know if you how much you read, but there's a Russian called Dostoevsky, and he basically said, it doesn't matter how happy you are, you'll always be unhappy because you haven't got the next thing, and then you'll get that and you haven't got the next thing. I'll be happy if I get a nice car, get a nice car, or I'll be happy if I had a newer model. I'd be happy if I had newer headlights. I'd be happy if I had a different girlfriend. I'd be happy if and so on. And of course, I think people generally make themselves unhappy because they're always striving for happiness,
That's true.
um, which is a state of mind. And so, the meaning of life, to be fulfilled in life, do something meaningful and do something noble. I really genuinely believe that wholeheartedly. It's not just words. Um, you can become old and you can look back on those things with pride. You can look back on a medal on the wall and say, "Oh, I won a race." But there's some things about athletics, sports, which they're there for the genetically gifted.
Yes.
You can't play basketball as a top professional unless you're 6'8". You're genetically selected to be in that profession at that high standard. You can be as skillful as you like, but you're only 5'6". It ain't going to work.
That's true.
Um,
Unless you
yeah,
could jump really high.
yeah. So I love sport. I love competitive sport. I love athletics. So I'm not taking anything away from it. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's really, really good thing to do. But when you're special at something, when you're a winner at something, it's not winning the race that's important. It's what you do with the credit you get for being that winner. So there you are. You're the gold medal winner at the Olympic Games. Wonderful. I've made £1 million. Everybody wants me to to sponsor their products. Aren't I a great guy? I've got a great car and a great girl, and I'm doing this. I'm doing this. What else did you do? Did you help a children's hospice? Did you set up a charity? Did you go and talk to young kids? Did you help people with that victory that
Yeah.
God gave you, if you believe that God gave it to you, or genetics gave it to you, if you don't want to look at it that way? You're lucky. You were born with those gifts, and now do something noble and worthy with them. Yeah.
See, that's that kind of leads me on to my next question, Robin, is when was the last time you felt totally at peace with yourself?
Oh, I can tell you that. And it won't be the answer you expect, actually. Um, 2 years ago, I had just finished 6 months of chemotherapy,
Wow.
which made me incredibly ill. And then I had to recover from the chemotherapy and go into hospital and have my bladder removed. Um, and the morning, as the morning came for the operation, and I hadn't had any pre-meds at this time, because the nurse couldn't find a vein to put them in. And I just laid there and totally accepted my situation. I totally accepted that I might not wake up. I totally accepted that they were going to take away my um, my bladder, my prostate, and everything that was associated with that part of my body would never work again. And I just completely accepted it. And I completely relaxed and felt it was a peculiar sensation of peace.
Yeah.
So that's the last time. And it's 2 years since I had the op, and I'll never be the same again. But I don't have any cancer at the moment, so
Exactly.
that's cool.
And you
Yeah,
live to tell the story.
yeah, yeah.
See,
So that's the last time.
I like that answer. It's actually really nice. It's I'm sorry for what happened to you, but I'm glad that you shared it to let people know there is life even after something tragic could happen.
Well, I could look at what I lost, and I could look at the fact that I'm still alive.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and my wife's watching TV in the bedroom just around the corner there,
Yeah.
and my kids are all great, and so on. So it's don't look at what you've lost. Look at don't worry about the penny you lost. Worry about the penny you're going to find.
That's a good say. I'm gonna use that. Now. I'm definitely gonna use that.
Yeah, I'll charge you.
That's okay. That's fine. I don't mind. If you could change anything in the world right now, what would you change and why would you change that particular thing?
Anything in the world,
Something.
without going into flights of complete fantasy. Um, I would try to. I would actually try to guide Western liberal governments away from being bipartisan, from two-party systems where people are in government, instead of being in government for everybody to do something that benefits the people, they seem to be constantly in conflict with one another.
That's
So
true.
it's a good idea, but it's your idea, so I'm not going to support it. We've seen it in America for the last 4 years, but we've also seen it in the United Kingdom as well.
Yes.
And there are other countries in Europe that have a circular government. They don't have left and right benches. and everybody believes that they're there for to make decisions on behalf of the people. They disagree, they debate, they vote, but they don't vote just along party lines. And I think one of the biggest, most damaging aspects of excuse me, British life at the moment and American life um, has been this political movement that has uh, fed our anxieties and and put people into groups that we don't like, um, and made you fear them, made you dislike them, and so on. We see it. We see it in a lot of other aspects. Populism. They group people together: male, female, black, white, Asian, Muslim, Christian, and so on. And as soon as you start to put people into groups, you dehumanize them. You stop them being individuals in your mind and in other people's minds. And that's what populist politics tends to do at the moment. So one thing in my fantasy world, in my utopia, would be to take the House of Parliament and make a circular bench, and with people placed, and nobody sits, and everybody's mixed up, like with a rugby crowd,
Yes.
where everybody's mixed together, and then they talk and they communicate and they're in contact with each other, and they vote against one another's policies, but they're not voting against one another's parties. So there we go. How about that one?
I like that. That's a really good one, actually. That's a really, really good one. Here's one for you. If you were yourself as you are now, sitting there, and then you had your 17-year-old self in front of you, what advice would you give to your 17-year-old self?
I think I would say stop being disappointed in people,
That's a good one.
because when you're disappointed in people, nobody will ever come up to the standards that you want them to come up to.
I had to learn that.
Yeah, because of being bullied, I think that I was looking for everybody to be Jesus Christ. All my mentors, all my sergeant majors, all my leaders, I expected them to be perfect people, and they all disappointed me because they weren't. And it took me a long time to realize that, they're just human beings with rank and authority. So I think I would have been a happier young man if I hadn't set such high standards for the people that, for my friends, as much as anybody else. Yeah.
I like that.
Fortunately, I didn't do that with my wife.
Oh, no, but she's different. She's in a whole different, bracket.
Yeah.
She's in a whole different era, so she's fine. She's absolutely fine. What is the best advice, Robin, that you have ever received that has impacted your life?
Well, lots, but I can think of one thing that comes directly to mind, and that was I think he was a colonel, and his surname was Hoare, but I can't remember his first name, so I won't guess it. Colonel Hoare, and I went to get a job from him in Alton in Surrey after I'd left the army, and I went and I told him how amazing I was, and I was an ex-SAS soldier, and I'd done all these amazing wars, and I could shoot people from 1,000 meters, and so on. And he said, Robin, I'm not going to give you a job. I'm going to give you a piece of advice. He said, when you go for a job, he said, tell the person how you're going to make them money or how you're going to save them money. I met him 20 years later, and I reminded him that he told me that. Yeah.
What did he say?
He smiled. He just smiled. We were at a dinner, a parachute regiment dinner, and he just smiled.
See?
Yeah. It was good advice.
It is good advice.
Job, tell them how you're going to make them money or save them money.
See? That's actually quite true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're giving me some good advice today, Robin. What
There's
would you
loads
do?
in my books.
Hey, you didn't give me one.
You can find them on amazon.co.uk.
Okay, I'll go on there. See, all right, you put me in my place there. That's fair enough. I like. See,
You can even
guys.
find them on wiseoldparatrooper.co.uk.
See, now I know. See, guys, go and support. Okay. What would you do differently, Robin, if the word judgment was taken out of the dictionary? So if there was no judgment in the world, what would you have done or what would you do differently? We're
Hmm.
constantly always getting judged by people. Is as soon as we step out, how we look, how we dress, what music we listen to, we're always constantly getting judged. But if there was no judgment in the world, what would you do differently?
I think if we don't set standards for one another,
Mm-hmm.
standards of behaviour, if we don't have institutions, if we don't have rules that we're expected to abide by,
Yes,
then we have chaos.
that is true.
There are times in my life where I would genuinely have seriously hurt somebody, if not killed them,
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't been concerned about the consequences. As I got older and I learned more, I realized that some of the things that I want to do are just morally wrong. But I was an immoral person when I was young. I'm a moral person now. Um, so you know, those judgments, those standards, they have a purpose, and they're good purpose most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're wrong. They're wrong if you're judging somebody by the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
They're wrong if you're judging somebody by the accent they speak with.
Yes.
Um, but we all make judgments. Every time we meet somebody or even see somebody across the room, we
Mm-hmm.
make judgments based on what we visually see
That's
and what
true.
we hear.
Yeah,
So if there's somebody sat on the other side of the room and they're swearing loudly, you've made a judgment. That's it. You've put them in a category. It's just nature.
that's yeah, that's true. But how do you think we could stop that though? Through do you think we could actually stop that?
Well, I think in the biblical sense of judge
Mm-hmm.
not lest ye be judged, um,
Yes.
in the sense of trying not to be part of a group of malicious character assassinators, where you sit in a group and constantly look for the reasons to malign other people,
Mm-hmm.
is something you should steer away from. When I find myself in company like that, I usually rub my hands and say, right, let's talk about someone we like, shall we?
Ah, yes, change
Uh,
it.
it
Change it up.
it does make people go quiet. um, People judge other people sometimes simply because they want to feel superior to them, because
That's very true.
they want to go up that pecking order, and that tends to be a natural part of human behaviour as well. But to be civilized, we need to overcome that. If we want it, and being civilized and being well behaved is hard work. I don't know the name of the comedian, but she plays the old woman and she swears, and I can't remember her name. Uh, or whatever, the girl that does that.
Yeah,
And she plays an old lady. And we've all met old ladies and old men that tend to swear,
yeah.
where when they were younger they didn't. It's because they're so bloody tired. And it's hard work to be well behaved. It's so easy to be badly behaved.
That's
It's
true.
lazy.
That's
It's
true.
hard work. It's hard work not to swear. It's hard work to use the right diction, to use the right words, to think about what you're doing. It's so easy to just say, oh, bollocks. Oh, whatever.
Oh, what would you like your legacy to be when you feel like you've had enough, you're done, I'm done? How would you like people to remember you?
That's easy
Ooh, I
because
like
I
that.
was at what was it? Autographica at the National Exhibition Centre with Tony Curtis, the
Okay.
1950-60 star. And he was in his 80s, and he had bad lungs at the time, and he was supposed to do the presentation to the audience, but he got ill, and so I was supposed to be the warm up man. Robin, you got 10 minutes, and then Tony Curtis is coming on, and then they said, Robin, can you do an hour? So I did an hour, and at the end of it, I said, because there were all sorts of people there. There were astronauts, people who had landed on the moon. Bond girls. There were all sorts of really, incredible people from television and the movies. And so, what do you say to people like that when, you've got to give them something to go away with? And if I get the words right, I said, it doesn't matter whether you've landed on the moon or whether you've been a special forces soldier or whether you've been a television star. At the end of your life, when you're gone, the greatest accolade that anybody can ever give you is to say he was a good man.
Yes, that is very true. It's simple, but it's effective.
Yeah.
See?
And
That's
I hope
perfect.
to say that.
That's perfect. I like that. Where can we find you, Robin, on all your social medias? I've been lucky to be able to have you here on the Us People podcast. So this is where I turn around and I say thank you. But before I say thank you again, please could you let us know if anybody else would like to get in contact with you to even have a podcast with you or just talk to you about what you've been through and your books also.
Yeah.
How can they find you?
Well, it's quite easy, actually. You just put Robin Horsfall. There's no E in Horsfall. So it's
Yes.
Horsfall.
Yes.
And just put it in Google. And about 30 pages come up. And you can find almost all my sites there. You can
Yes,
find
that's
my
true.
Facebook page. You can find Wise Old Paratrooper. You can find my books on Amazon. I've got a new book coming out next year, which is called Warrior Poet: A Soldier's Songs. And I'm looking for an agent or publisher at the moment. And I broke my neck when I was 56, doing karate with my oldest son, Alex. And
Oh my
I didn't get
gosh.
paralyzed, but I couldn't teach karate anymore. So I was 50. Was I 50? I was 54. And so I went off to university and did English Lit with Creative Writing as an undergrad, mature student in a classroom of 21-year-old to 23-year-old women, which was an interesting experience that I wouldn't repeat. It was hell. But it was. I learned a great deal, and I really got into poetry and their forms, and so I've written this book called Warrior Poet Soldier's Songs, which is an illustrated book of poems, which has a military leaning to it, but it has all the love and hate and difficulties of life, and it has a little bit of politics about Trump in it as well.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Yeah, so watch out for that one too.
Definitely. I'll let you guys know when it's out, most definitely. Robin, this is the time where I turn around and I say thank you so much for your time and your patience and your wisdom for coming on the Us People podcast. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Let's do it again one day.
Oh, we get a round two.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, right, guys. He's given me a round two, so we're gonna get a round two. Thank you so much, Robin. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Us People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Us People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website or just typing in www.paypal.me/Us People podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Hey, good job. I enjoyed that. That was fun. But my wife says, getting a man to talk about himself is easy. It's getting him to shut up that's hard.